So if we talk about the challenges and limitations of React Native, there are many. Despite being improving for such a long time and despite such a great community and everything, there are still some challenges and limitations that React Native application development is facing. So let's talk about the first one, that is the performance limitations. These performance bottlenecks that can occur when dealing with heavy computations and large data sets, interactions with native modules. As we have already talked about, there is some limited access to native APIs. If we talk about the APIs such as geolocation and core APIs like the calendars and everything. So there is a limited access to that. So while this React Native provides access to many native APIs and features, there are still some platform specific functionalities that may not be directly accessible. So it is not fully optimized. So in such cases, developers may need to write some custom native modules or use third-party libraries, and so this all can introduce additional complexity and performance overhead. Then there is another performance limitation, that is memory management. So React Native relies on automatic memory management that is provided by the underlying JavaScript engine. But while these all simplifies memory management for developers, it can lead to memory leaks as well, or inefficient memory usage, especially in long-running applications and when handling large data sets. Then we come to the startup time or the bundle size. There have been techniques and optimizations for reducing this bundle size, but still when we develop a React Native application, suppose with Expo we are not managing the iOS and Android project separately. So whatever the Expo cloud provides to us, so it provides a very large files, around 100 MBs for iOS and 50 MBs for Android. So such large files are not ideal to upload to App Store and Play Stores because users are not attracted to such large sizes. So these bundle sizes is another performance limitation. Then we'll come on to debugging later. The next thing that we have is platform dependencies in React Native. So developers may encounter challenges with working with platform specific requirements because there is the talk between React Native, if this is RN and this is native. So there is a talk going on in between. There has to be a native side always because this React Native is dependent on this native side, leveraging everything from this native side. Like if we talk about the iOS, this iOS has APIs written in Objective-C or Swift language. This includes functionalities such as accessing device hardware, that is camera, GPS, and then integrating with iOS frameworks, that is core location or core Bluetooth, and utilizing platform specific UI components, for example the UI kit. Then if we talk about Android, Android APIs are written in Kotlin or Java. So this includes functionalities such as accessing sensors, for example accelerometer or gyroscope. So these all sensors and everything, all the native APIs are available on the native side only. So suppose, for example, these APIs, some of these APIs are not fully developed to be leveraged by the React Native side. So there is some limitation, some platform dependency. We have to write the code on the native side. So developers might feel some challenge for working with platform specific requirements. So integration with Android services like Google Maps and Firebase, utilizing platform specific UI components that are Android views. We already talked about that it is directly dependent on the platform specific components. For example, if there is a view on the iOS side I mean the React Native side, it will go to iOS and check what corresponding component is available. It will go to Android and check what corresponding component available in Android. So this way it is too much dependent. Then also there is platform specific configuration that we have to do while developing with React Native. When working with React Native CLI, we have to install platform specific tools. For example, if we are working with iOS, we have to install Xcode and work with that. And if we are working with Android, we have to work with Android Studio at one time or the other. So these are the platform specific configuration and dependencies. So React Native projects require these configuration files to define project settings and dependencies, some permissions, and some other platform specific details. For example, in iOS, we have a file as info.plist. We define all of the things of iOS project in this particular file. And for Android, there is a file known as Android manifest. We specify all the Android project things into that file for Android project. Then there is platform specific tooling. We already talked that Xcode and Android Studio is there. And to debug also, we might need some specific tooling for iOS and Android. Then there are different guidelines from platform specific platform consoles. For example, if you are working on Apple Developer Console and Google Developer Console, there are some guidelines given to us that some permissions are accessible or not. Can you ask for some permissions from the user, or you have to get that in written that your product is able to ask that, and yes, stuff like that. Next thing, if we come to the UI fragmentation part of React Native. So these are the challenges that developers face in achieving consistent UI design and behavior across different platforms and various devices, because we are writing same code for all the platforms, that is Android and iOS. So somehow all of these devices have some different configurations. So same code may not look same on all the devices. So there is some break in UI. So developers may face some challenges while achieving this consistent UI design on various devices. While React Native aims to provide a unified development experience for cross-platform mobile applications, differences in platform design guidelines and native components and device capabilities can lead to UI fragmentation. Some factors, if we talk about UI fragmentations, are first is platform specific guidelines. Then this means the iOS and Android have distinct design principles and UI patterns. So React Native developers need to ensure that their apps adhere to these guidelines to provide a native look and feel on each platform, which can result in platform specific UI implementation, which is again a limitation. Then the platform specific components. So while React Native offers a set of cross-platform UI components that we talked, that Vue and everything, so there are cases where developers need to use platform specific components or implement platform specific behavior, where we talk that in platform dependencies. So this leads to inconsistencies in UI because we have written different platform specific codes. Then there are device form factors. So apps need to support various device form factors, screen sizes and orientations. So as we are including all iOS and Android devices, So we are including many devices. That's why UI might break, because we are considering many form factors, screen sizes, and orientations. So designing UI layouts that scale and adapt to different screen sizes and resolutions can be really challenging, leading to this UI fragmentation, especially on devices with unconventional aspect ratios or screen configurations. Then if we come to debugging and tooling of these React Native applications, again, there are some platform specific issues. While this debugging and tooling have been improving over the years, but there are still some challenges that developers may encounter. So if we talk about some of them, so there is cross-platform compatibility. So ensuring this cross-platform compatibility can be really tricky, as React Native applications need to work seamlessly on both and iOS and Android. Developers may encounter differences in behavior, appearance, or performance between platform, requiring thorough testing and debugging to identify and address compatibility issues. Then there is other issue of limited debugging tools available in React Native. Actually, React Native provides debugging tools like React Native Debugger, then there is Chrome Dev Tools, and then there is Flipper. So they may or might not offer the same level of debugging capabilities as there in native development environments, like if we talk about the Xcode or the Android Studio, which are the native application development environments. These might have a higher level of debugging capabilities, which is not available in the tools like React Native Debugger, Chrome Dev Tools, and Flipper. If we give an example, that Flipper is somehow there, a good debugger for React Native applications, but there are some limitations in some versions, like if we configure Firebase into our React Native application, Firebase installation and configuration in the React Native application stops the working of this Flipper debugging tool in some of the iOS apps. It depends on the specific React Native version, Flipper version, Firebase version, but yes, there is some limitations with some debugging tools there. Then again, there is hot reloading and fast refresh issues. If we talk about debugging and tooling, that while reloading and fast refresh, these are the powerful features of React Native, but they do not always work as expected, especially in larger or more complex projects. So developers may encounter issues like state inconsistencies, and there may be more re-renders and incorrect module caching. So all of these needs to be debugged, but obviously there is limitations in debugging also. Then while we are integrating these third-party dependency integrations, so these applications often rely on these third-party libraries for various functionalities. So we can't directly debug these third-party libraries also. Debugging third-party libraries. So debugging third-party libraries is way too tedious. We can debug our own code, but the third-party library can be written in iOS specific or Android specific, or maybe in JavaScript, but it is really tedious to go into that and debug that when React Native has too much dependencies on these third-party libraries. Then there is overhead of this JavaScript bridge in React Native. We have talked something about the overhead of this when we were talking about the bridge limitations and the new architecture. So this bridge introduces overhead and potential performance bottlenecks. Excessive communication between JavaScript and native code can impact the app performance. So there is the continuous talks between the React Native and the native side. So if there is too much of this going on, so this bridge impacts the native performance or the mobile application performance, because there is only one way of talking of React Native to the native side. So if we talk about some complex UI animations or complex calculations in those animations, so there might be some breakage into those animations because there is too much overhead and delays while connection with native side and the React Native side. For example, if we talk about there are 5 tasks to be done from React Native, so those 5 can be queued here and they will be done one by one only. They are not going to be done along as all the 5 tasks. So there may be some delay in the 5th task to be executed. So there is this bottleneck that happens sometimes when there is too much calculation and everything is going on. Then of course the last thing is the learning curve, as there is this platform dependency performance limitations. So the developers may need to learn the platform specific APIs, native development practices, and React Native specific patterns and best practices. So only learning React Native or the JavaScript part is not enough for developers to develop the React Native applications, but they have also to go through the platform specific APIs and the native development practices, because they somehow have to work with Xcode and Android Studio while working with React Native CLI. So that was it about the challenges and limitations of React Native. Let's move on to the next slide. So here we talk about the future trends and expectations that are with React Native.